And it's lights out. Welcome to the Pitwall, your stop for fantasy Formula One content. This is our amazing podcast. I'm your host, Jeanmark, and joining me this evening is my father, Dr. David Kessler, and our great friend, Paula. As you can see, I'm in a new location. That's because me and my wife are house shopping. We're in a nice little spare bedroom someone's letting us borrow. Some of the microphone audio might be different than what you expect, but that is fine. And as we prepare for the Hungary GP, this coming weekend is my sister's wedding, which means that the family is all going to be down in Ohio having some fun, and we're going to post some reactions to the race and make it a itty-bitty podcast reaction. Of course, we'll still put our ORC podium results at the end of that video. Also, if you would like to follow us on Twitter at Relsic Racing, the link will be in the description below. Put your race reactions and we'll feature some of them in our next podcast. It should be pretty cool. And like I said, we are liking for you to be along for the ride, but tonight and the next podcast are going to be pretty short. But my hope is to get a 3-stat secret for this upcoming race to help all you sweaties out there. Let's get into our dynamic pricing. If you were paying attention to Giovinazzi, you would have been able to get a small day trading opportunity. His pick rate went from 9% to 10%, and then his sentiment went above 90%. And if you're wanting to day trade, always keep track of a driver's pick rate and their sentiment. If the two are raising at the same time, that's your biggest indicator that they're going to go up in value. Someone else who's gone up in value by 1% is Leclerc. He's from 34% to 35%. So if his sentiment starts peaking before the next race, he's also bound to go up, and that'd be a good person to pick up if you're trying to get the value. Two people to keep in mind for streaks for the race is Hamilton and Bottas. Both Mercedes drivers are available for a plus 10 race streak bonus. If you're trying to get someone for a quali streak, you're looking at Perez. But it seems like Perez is hit and miss during the race. So yeah, you can get plus 5 points, but what is that going to mean for you when it comes race time? Paula, tell us, why are you picking up Hamilton for this upcoming race?
Well, two reasons. The main one I would say is just I need to mega drive somebody before I lose out the opportunity to do so. And I want to get that race streak. But also I think I'm not alone in having lost quite a bit of confidence in Perez. So I moved my team around quite a bit. I took Perez off. I put Leclerc in. I switched out also Gasly for Russell as a result of that.
What about you, Dad? Do you have any inclination to pick up Hamilton or Bottas to capitalize on their race streak?
Unfortunately, I used my wild card last week, so therefore I wasn't able to substitute those people out and have enough rearrange my budget with only swapping 3 people. So I ended up going with Leclerc instead of Perez and adding Sainz, and I also have Schumacher.
So it seems that only Paula is going to be able to benefit. For those of you that have not used your wild card, this is the last race that you can use it. If you haven't used your MegaDriver, this is the last race that you can use it. After the Hungary Grand Prix, we have what's called summer break. It's roughly 3 weeks to 4 weeks. There's no action at all, pretty much for the middle section of August. And then everything in Fantasy Formula One resets. You get a new MegaDriver option for the second half of the season, and you also get a wildcard that you can use in the second half of the season. So like I said, if you want to use your MegaDriver or your wildcard, use it before this race. There may not be a lot of movement for wildcard, but if you're trying to get Bottas and Hamilton, which you can afford both of them on your same team, if you have 103 million or so value, you should pick them up. That's plus 20 points. Important statistic that you should keep in mind heading into this race. Dad, fill us in.
Hamilton's dominated this course with 8 wins. Hats off to Paula, who has him on her team this week.
That is a record. Michael Schumacher, father Mick Schumacher, who also has 7 world titles, has the same world record of 8 wins at the same track. So Hamilton has dominated here at the Hungaroring. Someone also we have to take in mind is the upgrades that Mercedes has put in to their cars. So not only is Hamilton and Bottas doing really good at the last race, they could continue to do good at this race. And that's why people are losing faith in Perez, because he seems to not be as consistent as Bottas. This is perhaps another reason why Hamilton was so aggressive at the Britain GP, because at Silverstone, not only is that his home Grand Prix, it's also one of his most winning Grand Prix. He knew that GP and this GP were his strong suits. So if he could get a win there and he could get a win here, he could claw back some of the deficit he had against Verstappen. And now he has the added bonus that because Verstappen, he punted off the track. He caused him to crash and DNF. Now that is just a 7-point gap. And so if Hamilton can win, he's able to bring them level again. That's why Red Bull was so adamant to take away his fastest lap. So Paula, how do you think this is going to play out?
I'm more excited to see Hamilton. It sounds like he's really taking advantage of the upgrades that Mercedes has put out, and it looks like the team has been pushing him a little more to use everything in the toolbox, including the simulator, which we know he hasn't been a fan of in the past. I think this is a Mercedes week.
What do you think, Dad? Do you think that he's going to make this his 9th win? Or can Red Bull strike back?
Unfortunately for Paula, I believe that Verstappen is going to be hungry to get back, not at Hamilton per se, but to get back to stay in the lead. I don't think he's going to bow down to them. I think he's going to come out hard. And the thing that got him last week was the sprint race. They had not had a sprint race, he would have done the same thing in the real race, got above Hamilton and won that race. Because of the sprint race, Hamilton realized that if he didn't pass him in that first lap, he probably would never pass him. So he became really aggressive.
So you think that sprint race gave Hamilton not just a insight of what he had to do, but it gave him an advantage because he was no longer starting on pole. He was now starting on the second part, which gave better traction off the line. So this one is going to come down to your standard format. No sprint race qualifying, just free practice 1 and 2 on Friday, free practice 3 and qualifying on Saturday, and then the race on Sunday. I think also on this track, if Verstappen does not DNF, he's going to be fine. And he has a good chance to beat Hamilton because he seems to do good overcuts in the Red Bull. And then the second thing is, as Paula is going to be mega driving Hamilton, Hamilton doesn't usually DNF, and so Hamilton should be a really solid option for the MegaDriver, even if he were to get in second. I don't see him getting anywhere less than second for the rest of the season, right? Unless something bad happens. Hamilton is wanting to, and then the team isn't going to allow Bottas to be ahead of him unless Hamilton has damage. It's now time for It's in the Numbers. We had a very fun time these last couple weeks with It's in the Numbers. Some of them have been tricky and you haven't been able to get them. Others have been able to get very close. Same thing with this one. Now, this is a really cool thing that we've discovered. If we give a hint and you find an alternative way to solve that, it's in the numbers, and we like it, oh man, we're going to give you a shout out anyways, because you guys come up with some cool stuff. Dad, run us through last week's It's in the Numbers and who got it.
The numbers 7, 6, 5, 10 were pointing to Ricardo. And Christoph did a great job. He recognized that the 7th was where he qualified, the 6th was a sprint race, and then he finished in 5th. The 10, he said, was the 10th year anniversary. To me, 10 was for how many championship points he got at the end of the race, but he got the right driver, and I learned something about a 10-year anniversary. Thank you, Christoph.
So 10 points for his 10th anniversary of racing in Formula One. That's a pretty cool stat. Isn't it crazy how long Ricciardo has been racing? He's just 2 years younger than Vettel. Is he? I just know he's 32, and I think Vettel's 34, right? And then Hamilton's 36. Yeah, I think Hamilton's 2 years older than Vettel, who's 2 years older than Ricciardo. But let's confirm this.
Vettel age 34, yep.
And then Ricciardo's age?
Ricciardo 32.
Vindicated. Yeah. The only reason I know this stat is because Dad's putting together a part of our Google spreadsheet and you can find the link in the description. It's really great. You can see all of our statistics. You can see the sentiment tracker. You can see values. Actually, we might as well go there since I'm thinking about it. I have added a brand new thing on the rank tab of the spreadsheet. You'll notice under score we have our average points, but now I have a 3R average, which shows the average points that drivers are scoring over the last 3 races. It'll be green if they are performing better by at least 5 points, and it'll be red if they're underperforming by at least 5 points to their average. So now you can see who is on a rise and who is on a downward spiral. For example, Perez normally was getting 25 points. Over the last 3 races, he's averaging only 19. That's still pretty good, but not good enough if you want him compared to someone like Leclerc, who was averaging 21 points, but over the last 3 races has been averaging 26 points. Or Sainz, who was averaging 18, and over the last 3 races has averaged 24 points. Alonso, he averages 13. Over the last 3 races, 21 points. So those 3 drivers have been better performing than Perez. Even Bottas, an average of 22 points, has been averaging 37 points. Just as good as Verstappen. Of course, Verstappen had his DNF, but these are going to show you who you might want to pick up as they're progressing. Have you guys considered using Leclerc, Sainz, or Alonso instead of Perez?
Yeah, I made that switch. Was sort of forced to because of budget, but I'm happy to have Leclerc back on. It didn't feel like a hit to put him on. He'll probably be my turbo driver this week. Yeah, he's been doing a lot better. It seems like Ferrari has got a little bit of their pace back, and Leclerc has been consistent, and he's been making his calculated risks.
I lost faith in Perez, and I picked up Leclerc too, but I think I'm still going turbo Norris. Norris has been consistent, gets points each time, and Leclerc, he's a little streaky, so he might do a great job and get more points, or he might get less points than Norris.
If you look at Norris, his average is 32 points, and his 3 race average is 35. He's not highlighted green or red, but that just means that he's within that 5-point window, so that's good. It's now time for the It's in the Numbers. Between races, we will be doing historic It's in the Numbers for the upcoming race. When it's a race reaction, we will be doing It's in the Numbers for that race day so that you can know what we're referring to. So, Dad, what's in the numbers for this coming week?
1:30 period 149, 1:16 period 207, and 1:16.627. Name the drivers. Note there's more than one. Hint, historic Hungaroring, and it's about track evolution.
If you think you have a clue, you put the comment down below. Give us your answer and why. If it's close or fits what we're looking for. I love giving hints and counter hints. We'll give you a shout out in our next podcast. Our next one is a little bit shorter, but then that means you get to hear your shout out even quicker. Now to our fantasy lineups going into this next week. We're going to promo one of our lineups. We'll start off with you, Paula. Name our lineup and then talk us through it.
My lineup for this week has Hamilton back on. Had to take Perez to squeeze him in. He's going to be my mega driver. We mentioned before, if you haven't used that yet, now's your chance. I'm in between having Leclerc or Norris as my TD. And I'm also considering potentially putting in Latifi instead of Russell. It depends on how they do at practice. And I tend to listen a lot to what Leclerc says on his social media in terms of how he's feeling about the pace of the car. I'll keep an eye out for that.
Would you consider putting in Mick Schumacher instead of Russell? Because he usually gets more points than Latifi. Or are you trying to diversify instead of having two Haas's on the same team?
I hadn't considered that. You know, there's a thing with the numbers that you don't want to have that much budget left unused. Right now, it's just a 0.2. And there's something about having almost closer to $1 million of budget that you didn't use that doesn't feel right. But I think you're right. That should be something.
The budget's just there to afford better drivers. But if you can't afford better drivers, then you want points drivers. So that's why you use the term money picks versus points picks. For example, Norris and Leclerc are your money and points picks because they could go up in value and get you points. Hamilton, you might have to be careful because if he loses value, you might have to do a dance. Have you used your wild card already?
Did.
And you have already used your 3 subs?
I think I have 2 subs left.
Okay, because Hamilton, what you might have to do is a balancing game. If Hamilton's about to drop in value, drop him for someone else. Wait till after he drops in value, then pick him up and you won't lose your 0.1 million cost cap. So that's a way to day trade with him so that you can still keep him without getting hurt for keeping him. Dad, let's go over your lineup that you're promoting for this coming week.
So I have Verstappen, Schumacher, Norris, and Red Bull as last time. I dropped Gasly and Perez. I just don't trust them right now. I think they're too unstable. I end up picking Leclerc up and Sainz, and I think that combination will work better for me.
So this track is harder for passing. So if Leclerc and Sainz are qualifying higher, it's not like anyone's going to pass them. I think Gasly's weakness is he's usually losing places. You don't want that on your team. And Perez hasn't been consistent enough. You bring up a good point. The Ferrari boys would be good. Is there anyone you're on the fence about, or have you already used all your subs since you're locked in?
I'm pretty locked in at this point.
On to my teams. I always preview 2 because I only have 2. On the left is my team that I dedicated to doing no more than 1 or 2 subs per race. The second team is my day trading team. And as you can see, I have Giovinazzi on that team. He just went up by 0.1 million. So he did what he was supposed to do. So I will switch him out for probably Leclerc so that I'm able to get my actual points pick. On the left, team doesn't really have a lot of value to change out unless I switch Perez for Leclerc. And I might end up doing that because I don't want to lose value if I can avoid it, and Leclerc will probably be a solid option. Speaking of lineups, if you would like to join our One Race Challenger, or ORC, just find the link in the description below, put in the code. The code is here on the screen as well. We have amazing post-podcast podium ceremony at the end of our Race Reaction podcast, and the top 3 finishers are on that podium. And if you're on the top step, we get to hear your national anthem. Now, there are 2 rules you got to keep in mind. The first is that if you use a MegaDriver, for example, Paula, that does not get counted into your team's final score, because then everyone who used MegaDriver that week would be the winner. If she did for her Hamilton, he got 180 points. We divide it by 3, so then he would be at 60 points. That way it's able to be fair throughout the season. And the second thing is if 2 teams are tied on the same amount of points, and we do tie breaks by team value. Lowest team value gets preferential treatment. And that's just purely if you're going to end up on the podium. If you are in the top 3 positions and you are a podium place, you also get a special place in our Google spreadsheet. This is our ORC Leaderboard, and it keeps a running tally because we give 25 points for a first place or a gold, 18 points for a silver or second place, or 15 points for bronze or third place. And so Dad, he's at the top of the leaderboard. It's very hard for him to continue that way because his team doesn't have the value as some of the other people. But this is an opportunity to be immortalized in our one race challenge, our ORC. We currently have 18, and usually we get 30, 40. If we can get up to 50, then that means if we have a really good race week, we might end up on the leaderboard for large leagues. We have our seasonal long league, and it's doing really good. It's second in the globe. If we could get a one race challenge, that would be pretty special. Because it's so close to the wedding, and my bro's got a lot of things going on in his life right now, he hasn't been able to join us. We miss him because of all the humor he injects, the big picture amazingness that he invigorates this podcast with. League DRD is currently on pause till after the summer break. But Dad, you've got something cooking. You want us to have these cool little quizzes. Tell us the story. How did that start?
I watched a video where they asked the different drivers if they knew the numbers of the other drivers on the lineup. And I thought that was pretty interesting to watch them and how they pronounce their names. I was surprised that Hamilton knew 5 of them. I guess he's always in the front and never looked behind him anyways.
Even Hamilton didn't even know Bottas's number, which is hilarious that they're like in the same garage. For those of you who may not know, early on in the history of Formula One, your number was assigned by your position in the championship. So champion would get 1, his teammate would get 2, and then it would work its way down. It wasn't until 2014 that drivers could have permanent numbers. So this is why now we're having a steadier thing to say, okay, George Russell, he's always the same number. Hamilton's always the same number. The only number that can still be elected is if you're the champion. You can take number 1, but most guys, they have a brand with their number. It's like a jersey number at this point. And so that's pretty exciting. Now, Dad, what is your quiz for us today?
Okay, can you take this challenge and name the numbers of your drivers on your fantasy team?
For those of you in the comments, you can put it below. You'll probably be able to cheat by checking before you post, but see if you can do it by memory. Okay, let me start. I'm going to start with team 1. So I've got Verstappen with 33. I've got Perez, which is 11. I've got Norris, which is 4. I've got Sainz, which is 55. I've got Schumacher, which is 47. Okay, what about you, Paula, for your team that you promoted today?
I have Hamilton, who is 44. Mm-hmm. I have Leclerc, 16. I always remember his favorite number 7 is 6 and 1 makes 7. Ah. And I have Norris, who is 4. Mm-hmm. I have Russell, who is 63.
63, yeah.
And I have Mazepin.
Ooh, he's a tough one.
Is 9.
Yeah.
Very good.
I just thought of a really good way to remember Mazepin. Mazaspin. He has a number that can spin and be a different number. Okay, Dad, for your team lineup.
Well, since I listened to you guys and you named them all, it shouldn't be too hard. Verstappen 33, Schumacher 47, Leclerc 16, Sainz 55, and Norris 4. Okay, so thank you for your help.
You got it off easy, but Dad's
That's right.
We're putting together some cool things on our spreadsheet, so we're going to have more and more of these quizzes. You and Paula have been pretty much going back and forth between podcasts when we're preparing and doing all this stuff. You're like, what's this number? What's that number? So
what about your number? What would you pick, Paula?
We were thinking about this earlier. I think I would go with 17 because I want to be number 1. My favorite number 7.
Nice.
And 17 was when I started driving. And it's also my mom's birthday. So there you go, 4 reasons.
17
Great.
all the way. What about you, Dad? What would be your racing number?
I would like 15 because it has never been used before.
In all of the history of Formula One? Or are you talking about like
That's
since
correct.
2014?
Since 2014, since they were able to pick their number, no driver has picked that number.
Interesting. I wonder why. You would think
They're
that...
saving it for me.
Actually, my number would be 52 because my favorite number playing soccer was 5, so I'd wear that jersey. The problem is Vettel has 5, which isn't actually a problem because I really liked him right out the gate. He was red 5 for Ferrari, but he was also inspired by the red 5 of Nigel Mansell. So I instantly liked the British driver Nigel Mansell because of that. But then I was like, what about 55? Well, Sainz has 55. So I was like, okay, I'll do 52, but I'll make the font so that you could flip it. So no matter which direction it is, it always says 52. So that is my number. If you want to put in the comments, tell us what your race number would be, and we could put it in part of our race reaction shout out, of course. Give us your race reactions on Twitter at Relsick Racing. It'll say Pitwall, and we'll be able to engage with you this coming weekend since we won't have a proper podcast. And it's been so exciting to be your host, even if I have to travel and have to carry all my equipment with me and use my little laptop. But I've been your host, Jeanmark. Thank you, Dad, for joining us. And thank you, Paula. We've been your Knights in Racing Armor, and until next time, we'll see you on the pit wall.